What's up, Rockstars? Boy, do I have a video for you. There is so much going on. Some massive campaigns are online right now asking for your money. Let's talk about everything on BackerKit, on GameFound, on Kickstarter that I'm watching, that I'm tracking, that I think I need to share with you. Starting things out right off the bat, there is a link down in the description below to everything I'm showing and more, like a ton more. Like there's like 100 links down there. So feel free to check them out. Again, that's in the description below. Thank you so much. If you appreciate the effort that took, go ahead and leave a like, or if you liked this video, of course, that is appreciated. Let me know, I guess. This time isn't wasted. I hope it's helpful for you. Let's dive right into Wonderland's War, Shards of Madness. I've shared this about 3-4 times now, 27 hours ago. So this is your last chance. So if you've been waiting until the end to take a look and see what's available, why almost 10,000 backers are giving them almost $700,000, there is a link down in that description below. As I said, really, I think one of the helpful things is, again, top 400, 8.3 board Game Geek with all this praise and stuff like that. Look, they made a really good game that a lot of people really enjoyed. They delivered it, and now they're making more of that greatness, and people want it. That's a good sign as far as I can tell. So definitely probably at one of the safer bets I'm going to cover in this entire video right off the bat there for you guys. Go ahead and check that out. And the art is freaking killer. All right, next up we have Oathsworn Into the Deepwood 2nd edition. It's pretty much the same as the 1st edition with a few updates, a few enhancements, and a few new things. So this is crazy. First of all, they have such a small percentage of $1 backers. It's insane. I want to bring that up because of later, but suffice it to say, of these 14,899, I believe over 14,500 of them are actual backers and not like dollar backers. Like it's seriously, if you add all these up, it's almost like there. It's one of the best backed games I have taken a look at to check. Seriously, 9.3 on the Board Game Geek. This is what people are calling a masterpiece. This is what people are calling Game of the Year material here. This is something that people are loving. They did a 2 million online. By the way, they have made more than they made in the first one already, and that is just crazy. I always try to track reprints. How many more? Is it more people? Is it the same? Is it less? Right now, they're going to be getting more people than they did the first time, which shows how well of delivery this was. I cannot stress that enough. That is very unusual. Sometimes you meet it, often it's less. When I did Deep Madness covering that and all these other ones, most of those are less, and which is fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But you know, if more people are coming for it again than they did the first time, there's something there. Okay, so we get a lot of this Kickstarter stuff that just sits on your shelf that you play and you forget about and nobody talks about again. Oathsworn is not one of those, so feel free to check that out. And they do have a few updates. Like I said, I saw the metal dice there, all the stuff they did. The prices didn't raise that much actually at all. Like surprisingly not. There is a new stuff here. They got quite a few new things here for you to enjoy. But that being said, gameplay complete. So don't feel bad with your 1.0. It's a fantastic game. It's what got this 9.3, what got people coming back for more. It's not a bad game. Don't think it is. Moving on from that, we got Champions of Sona. This is actually from Squidmar Miniatures. So if you watch him on YouTube, this is his resin line that he's doing. He's hoping to do more. 165,000 raised, so congrats to him on that for a 42,000 goal. Almost 1,000 backers already, and still 17 days to go, like a lot. These actually are quite well priced. They are priced at around $53 per miniature. They're 75 millimeter and resin. If you didn't know why resin's so expensive, by the way, I'll give you a quick little primer on that. It's not because of the cost of the material. The plastic isn't like inherently super expensive. It's not like oil or something like that. What is expensive is how to do it well. So you either have to be a master craftsman at pouring it. And I mean, that's like meticulous and skill based to pour it without producing bubbles. So you have to pour it in the silicone base and then remove it. Removal of that silicone base often involves like a knife and carefully cutting it out and separating it. And it's a whole process to do it by hand. If you don't do it by hand, you then have to deal with vacuum chambers, which as it sounds is kind of expensive to force the bubbles out. Otherwise, if you get a cheap resin bust or a cheap resin miniature, you get these little bubbles of air that kind of ruin it. So it's very difficult to work with Of course, it's beautiful once it's done and done well, but that's why it's expensive. It is very expensive to make because of the process it takes to make it. It's not a steel injection mold where they just shoot it in there and it pops out 10,000 of them. Not the case at all. The silicone molds break down. You have to remake them. You have to cast them very well and very carefully. You have to pour it carefully, and then you have to still care for the bubbles. So definitely, that's why it is. I often say, like the all-in here is like $500+, which I never really condone. I mean, if you have the money, you do whatever you want with your money. But I do say that if you appreciate miniatures, or especially if you are a painter, find one big resin miniature that really speaks to you, one or two. Get those and paint them. It will change your appreciation for that entirely. It is such a wonderful experience to see such high quality minis and then to be able to paint them. It's way different than these board game minis, way different. So I highly encourage that. So if any of these speak out to you, definitely check them out. And they are very well sculpted. They definitely look very nice. So overall, I recommend. I mean, find something cool and do that. Look at this. It's freaking sweet. All right, moving on from that, we have The Queen's Dilemma, the sequel, standalone sequel to The King's Dilemma. If you didn't know, this is a legacy-style narrative game. In other words, something I won't touch. However, a ton of people loved The King's Dilemma. And, of course, The Queen's Dilemma doing very well. 2,500, 300,000 plus raised, 19 days still to go. And they show off quite a bit. Right off the bat, they talk about how, this is a standalone sequel, all that stuff. So they explain it really quick, and then they go into lots of detail around how to play it and all the stickers and other game-breaking, ruining stuff that you legacy people love, which more power to you. You do you guys. I think it's really cool that this is available for people that want it and that really enjoy going through these stories and kind of making those experiences with friends and family. At the end of the day, that's what we're all about doing, right? So I think that is super cool. So yeah, doing well there. And it is $130, which actually is right above, I think, the norm right now, which is like about 120. So a little bit more, but there's a lot there. You saw how many stickers and crap. I mean, there was a lot for sure. A lot of gameplay there. All right, next up we have Warcrow Adventures, 2,200 backers, 300,000. This is not doing as well as I thought it would. However, for just trying to launch also the skirmish game, this is an app-driven dungeon crawl co-op game, fantasy with 40 millimeter minis. I mean, they're very nice minis, very well sculpted and designed and different and unique, and I dig all of that. But it's also launching the skirmish because this is by Corvus Belli, who also do the tabletop stuff like Infinity. And I think starting one out with over 2,000 people that already have some of the minis that would be interested in more with 300,000 in revenue, that's not bad. It's a nice way to launch it. And I think that's what a lot of companies use Kickstarter for. So while I'm sure they felt and wanted this to do better, I think that overall they're fine. And I mean, they got a lot of good out of it. All right, next up we have Patriot, an immersive 1 to 6 player social deduction board game. 44,000 raised, 500 backers. This is actually doing quite well. And I was worried it wouldn't because it is very much an indie experience here. It's by Anthony Kirkham, who has created one more. I actually don't know what it is. Let's find out together. To create it, let's see what you did. Oh, look, Patriots. This is his thing. This is what he's been doing. And it's successful right now. It's doing almost over double what he wanted, at least getting there. This actually has minis. It has the best thing ever. They're doing stretch goals right now. It has a dog president, and it's actually modeled after his dog, and he definitely looks like a good boy. Ashy. She looks like a good girl. So I'm sure she's a great president. Honestly, it looks pretty cool for people who like the kind of hidden agenda kind of stuff there. But there's also some board stuff with riots and these police mechs and stuff like that. Looks crazy, looks wild. A lot of different cards and stuff there. Feel free to check that out as well. Zoo Tycoon. Who grew up playing Zoo Tycoon, right? I mean, that is a fun one. Now, while I enjoy all kinds of Tycoon, Civ, video games, single player, I'm not keen on them board games, so I'm not going to pretend to be. However, for people who want this, can I just say, best reason to back this? Again, you ready for this? Look at that. I actually really like these. These are cool. These look awesome. This is probably the first time Meeples have ever brought a smile to my face. But look at that bird, the monkey. I love it. I think that's great. So definitely get that Kickstarter version. You want that, what is it, screen printed? You want that screen printed meeples. That looks freaking sweet. I dig it. So yeah, it's a Euro game, right? It's a engine builder, point system, blah, blah, blah. The normal thing you would think of for a game like this, which makes total sense, of course. So yeah, all the attractions and animals and all sorts of stuff that you would expect are there. And it's doing quite well. 1,500 raised, 171,000. And this is in a competitive market right now. That is for sure. Still 26 days ago, plenty of time to decide. We have finally made it. Whew, I slapped. To Cthulhu Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown. Over 1 million raised, 10,000 backers, 13 days still to go. Let's see what they've added, right? Now, if you recall, the very first campaign actually was fairly, besides a giant miniature, it was fairly mellow. They had like just a few add-ons and that was really it. It wasn't some $300 crazy all-in thing where they like piecemeal out a whole bunch of stuff. They have a $100 pledge, which is one of their cheapest yet, which is just crazy because they have bigger minis and quite a few of them too. Though they actually can make them pretty cheap because a lot of these, while they look cool, aren't a whole lot of multi-part, which is helpful for them. Though there are definitely some here. I mean, some of these are quite advanced, but for the most part, single cast, so a lot cheaper for them to make. And I'm talking like a third of the price of like a heavy duty multi-part one that you tend to get. So they're making it in a smart way, which I think we need to see more of. I think that's really important there. They're getting all the exclusives. That's happened in the first one too. A lot of the investigators are exclusives. The ones in the first Kickstarter were actually quite good. I liked them and they didn't seem to break the game either, which I really appreciated. I find Zombicide ones typically do, but I mean, these are pretty much all Kickstarter exclusive, guys. It's a lot. They do have an unspeakable box here for 120, but you'll notice, look at that, it just comes with the old people and that. So you can get that, the stuff from the first Kickstarter, you can get it. It is available here, still Kickstarter exclusive. It's $120. It is actually quite nice. It's pretty good. These characters I think are really good. And it does come with, I think, two Elder Gods. And then they do have the Bigature, $180. Honestly, not that bad. Now, shipping, however, is almost half, right? So if we're looking at the US here, it's a $100 pledge, and that $100 pledge comes with about a $45 estimated shipping, and of course that could go up as well. So you're spending half the cost of the game in shipping, which is kind of gross. One thing I did want to note is, and by the way, I really appreciate them making the previous ones there because scalpers are dumb. So I really like this. I would rather give Kaman that money than a scalper if you're going to choose from that. So it's nice that you don't really, while they're really laying into the fear of missing out, obviously with all the Kickstarter stuff, they're also making it to where you can still get the stuff, which is, I think, quite nice for consumers that want it. They can get it, and that's good. If you combine this, right? In other words, how many people have done this? 8,000, and you compare that to the 10,000 backers. That means they're at about a 20% $1 rate. If you recall, this has like less than a percentage. It's like a tiny. Almost everybody that's backing this Oathsworn, which is making more money, is actually paying for it. Whereas a ton of the stuff in the Cthulhu one is not. Now, if you compare it to the last one, it's actually, again, doing quite well at 15,000 backers and 2.4 million. And here they are at 1.1 million, 10,000. But of course, they just launched. And of course, there is still people who can get it retail. But again, if you recall those numbers, Oathsworn actually has more backers is what they're getting and more money. And this one coming out has less backers, less money. So it is interesting to kind of compare that. I think people are just getting worn on the Command thing. And there is always an alternative for retail. You can go to retail to get this. And I think that's really important because there are people that will want this. I'll want this. I don't know if I'll get the Kickstarter paying the shipping and all that other stuff for it. I might just grab this at retail. I already have plenty of it. So if I do need more, I can still get that. So you're really only here. You're only doing this really for those KSEs, which is why they lay into it. You're not really getting it to even get it first half the time with Command. You're not getting it cheaper. So just go into it knowing this. If you want these, which they are good. I'm not gonna lie. The Kickstarter exclusives for the first one were very nice. So if you're into that and you want to pay it, that is fine. Just be aware of what you're getting into. But it's interesting to see those differences, right? Okay, moving on. Survival of the Fattest, one of the best named games I have ever covered. 19,000, they want 38,000, so they are kind of struggling here, and it's actually quite adorable. These minis look fantastic. The renders at least do. It is, I think it's okay priced, honestly. The early bird is only 40, but that is the standard edition, which is unfortunate. They don't have an early bird deluxe Kickstarter edition. Oh, they did. It's right here. It's all sold out. So they did do that. It was only 50 of them. That's kind of silly, but they do have the this one for 65. I think one of the problems is they're in Australian dollaroos, which means that the bigger, bolder number is higher. So you look at 99, I don't know, and they have the dollar symbol there too, which really throws it off. But they're dollaroos, not dollars. So these are Australian dollars, not US dollars. US dollars, it's a $65 game. So, I mean, you do get these minis and you do get the cards. There's a decent amount of cards at the one board. It's not a lot, but it is 65, which is nowadays fairly cheap. There is a Kickstarter exclusive fox, and he has a mustache, and that's adorable. So, I mean, it looks nice, and I think the price is okay. But it's certainly nothing crazy. And I think maybe that's it. Maybe that's the problem. Moving on from that, we have beautiful display cabinets for miniatures and more. $159,000 for, they only wanted 11,000, but obviously that's not, a thing. 500 backers. It is very expensive. It is very nice. You kind of get what you pay for there, I suppose. And it's weird that they made this weird. So you essentially, you select this and then pay the difference, which is, you essentially select this and then you pay the difference. So you're going to pay the $69 for essentially a single small one, and then you pay the difference. So if you actually want this one, you pay $299 minus the $59. You put in a custom amount there. It's very odd. I wish they had maybe done the add-on system. Maybe that would have been better, because and they have, see right here, you're doing math to do that, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't think that's the best implemented. And they have a whole lot of stuff that's like, hey, we'll add doors, we'll do this, we'll do that, but we don't know how much it'll be. So there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to price if you want something more custom, but they are willing to work with you. They do look nice. So they're very pretty, but they're rather pricey and a little cumbersome to buy. Next up, we have Grimdark Dungeon Master, Catacombs the Necromancer. This was actually on GameFound, and they canceled it. They'd only made 12,000 from 57 backers. Here, they're already doing better, 17,000 from 76 backers. So definitely doing better, but still far from the 50,000 goal that they have. I don't know what the goal here was. Well, that 50,000 goal there as well. So either way, they're struggling, and I can kind of understand that. Actually, I think, you see how the text is kind of small here, and it's a little spread out. I think it actually looked better on GameFound, right? You had this like raw text here instead of just the images. This looks bigger to me, right? So I think Kickstarter might have a different aspect ratio and they didn't adjust for that. So the text is a little small. This looks really nice and full, and this looks a little bit more sparse to me just because of the font. So it's just all a little bit smaller, in my opinion. So yeah, just interesting to see that. They were doing better on Kickstarter. That's of note, though it is their second outing. Though sometimes that's less. Sometimes it's more. Depends on how you did. But yeah, still probably not enough, sadly. All right, next up, we're at Forged Adventure Series 1. This was canceled. It is relaunching. I don't think it'll work. So here's the problem here. And this is the same thing that the fantasy series from Blacklist Games had. And that's, they're trying to sell a whole bunch of miniatures, but people aren't necessarily into all of the miniatures. And it can be quite pricey per mini unless the stretch goals are. So they're going to try and include more. They're trying to lower they had 145,000. They made 20,000. To be blunt, I think Backer Kit is the wrong one here. I think this would do better on Kickstarter. It's not a dig at Backer Kit. And in fact, the next game I want to show you is doing very well on Backer Kit. But when it comes to GameFound, when it comes to Backer Kit, people go there because they follow the clicks there, because they follow that there, not because they just happen to be there or because they get covered more or something like that. I'm not saying they're not getting covered more. I'm just saying that I do believe that there is some benefit of being on Kickstarter when it comes to Kickstarter's marketing that they can do, when it comes to doing the algorithms. In other words, comments can help. So doing votes and stuff like that, a lot of community stuff. You can rise in Kickstarter, not just by funding, but just by engagement with people, by them hearting it, by them sending out emails. There are ways to work within that. And I don't know the path forward on stuff like Backer Kit. I do pretty much know for a fact, and I know there's going to be exceptions, but that most people aren't going to Backer Kit to just browse, right? So you're sent here, and I I don't even know if this would work on Kickstarter. It didn't for the Fantasy Series 1. They funded, but then they couldn't actually make it because it's freaking expensive. Could they do that? I don't know. The unfortunate part of this is, if you recall, this is by Broken Anvil. They paused their main line of business, their main source of revenue, at least as far as I know, which was their 3D printed models, their STLs on their Patreon. Now, they still sell the ones they had, and that's some income. In fact, it's probably not a small amount of income, but they aren't making new ones. They were making about $120,000 a year on that. Give or take, I'm sure it ebbed and flowed. So, I mean, it is kind of unfortunate that they're like, okay, we're going all in on this, backer kit campaign stuff, and then can't fund it. So, yeah, I mean, it can't be fun to work there right now, and that's really unfortunate. I wish them luck. I do worry about it. It's $140 for 101 minis, but a lot of them are repeats. They look very nice. They do look nice, but it's not actually that many unique sculpts. You get more in like you'll get more unique sculpts already in the $100 pledge of Cthulhu Death May Die. So there is that. But we do have Spirit Island Nature Incarnate. This is also a backer kit. 780,000 raised. My goodness. 8,000 plus backers. And that's because they're selling not just one expansion, which is doing well. Obviously, by the way, people are loving what they're getting. But they're selling pretty much their entire backlog. They did end up putting more in here in their add-ons here. You can see that. At first, they didn't, but they did listen to feedback. They did add that, and they are definitely being rewarded for it with quite a bit of revenue. So that's good. Good for them. All right, next up, we do have 20 Strong. This is by Chip Theory Games. I need to make a correction on this. I had mentioned before that I was worried that this quick little campaign was a reaction just to try and get some funds because they got hit really hard, which was super unfortunate with the delivery of their last game, Vindicus. I believe I'm saying that right. Vindictus, whatever. That's not the case. They had been talking about this for a while. That was a mistake on my part, and I do apologize for that. So I wanted to clarify that right away. So with that, 260,000 from 4,000 backers. It is definitely a smaller game. It's not as expensive. It's just some cards, but that's also one of the appeals of it. It's just cards, dice, and you play it and you have fun. And I think that's actually really cool. It sounds like a pretty neat idea. They did have a little bit of outreach. They do have some, expansions and some other games that they have, and they hope to continue to do that, which is super cool. That being said, my goodness, look at all of those stretch goals. Dear Lord, that is a lot. So they've definitely been playing into that, like $65 for pretty much everything you'd want from this campaign. So definitely on the cheaper side, which is why the revenue. In other words, revenue is not always profit, guys. So if you have a very expensive game, you can get that revenue number up a lot. That doesn't mean you're making any profit. However, you can actually make quite a bit of profit off of this compared to something that might make double but cost triple to make, right? So it all just depends. That's why Death May Die, even though it's not making as much as Oathsworn, profit-wise, is probably actually ahead. Though I don't know, because Oathsworn is a reprint, so reprints are really, really good for that as well. So it probably balances out there. But the original one, definitely not. Cthulhu Death May Die had a better margin. Destinies Witchwood expansion, that's also on GameFound, 338,741 from 3,500 backers. People are loving this. One thing to note, it does not have the stable pledge. Notice this has a stable pledge, and the next one I'm going to show you also the stable pledge. This one does not. So do be aware of that. They chose not to do the stable pledge. Keep that in mind when you back it, just as an FYI. That being said, people love this game, and they're just getting more of it. I think that's great. Look at that. It even says masterpiece there. Masterpiece. So that's good. That's great. Yeah, all kinds of awards and stuff like that. So definitely people are enjoying it, having a lot of fun with it. It is app driven. Keep that in mind. And they are tiny minis. Keep that in mind as well. Like the skills like this. So, I mean, that thing is big, but it's not Oathsworn big. Okay, I'll put it that way. But it does look like a lot of fun. It looks super cool of a style. I really dig that. I like the Slavic kind of stuff there, right? All right, next up we have Escape from New York by Kevin Wilson. 200,000 plus, 1,700. Again, they are listening to feedback when it comes to a lot of stuff. I think it looks a little ugly, sadly, but it also looks like it could be quite a bit of fun. And if you are a fan of the IP, then this is definitely something you might want to be interested in. There's not really a whole lot new from when I covered last. They do have these cool stuff like cars and stuff like that. So they're definitely pimping it out a little bit. I would prefer these not to have bases, personally, but that's just me. Either way, they're definitely trucking along. Now, next up, the last one here, minus a announcement, Trick Shot 2nd Edition, 180,000. I have a friend, a patron that might be interested in this because I know he loves hockey. This looks pretty cool, and the pre-painted minis actually look really nice. This is an actual picture of the pre-painted ones from the 1st edition. So it looks like it'd actually be pretty good. So they're printing it out. They're changing a few things up. It looks nice. It looks pretty simple when it comes to how to play it. And when it comes to just its overall size, it's not a big footprint. You can kind of get this, play it nice. The pre-painted version is $90. So that's actually, I think, a really good price too. Otherwise, it's $60. And again, this $60, I think, looks way more worth it, I think, than the other one that was kind of cheap. The Survival of the Fattest, you do get the minis, which is nice, of course, and the board game, and you get a whole bunch of different cards and stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty much the same stuff, but you get minis as well. So super cool. I dig it. Still 20 days left of that. I'm going to end on Elden Ring, the board game, because I don't have an announcement yet. However, I might have a preview of Elden Ring for you guys. I'll keep you guys informed of that. Just know that if I do, it is definitely I wouldn't say a burden on me, but it is me definitely taking the time and to invest in this channel. So just as an FYI to that, I will be looking into the possibility of doing that for you guys, and I'll keep you guys informed. It'll be here very soon, by the way, if I do, but just stay tuned for Elden Ring. Regardless of anything, I'll be covering it, of course. I mean, it's like on my top 10. So yeah, I'll let you guys know. With that, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Thank you so much. Bye.